when you think of a lever, think of it as this person is someone I have a really good relationship with. They know me well. They know what I do. They know who I am, right? They know how I execute what I execute, so they can speak to it. And then I have to sell through them, right? So who can I create a relationship with based off of a relationship that I already have? That's called leverage. Leverage is my favorite word in the English dictionary for a reason, but leverage by definition is this big fancy thing. But in my world, it's simple. It is, who do you know that you have a really good relationship with, that you can build another relationship with someone that you don't know through them, right? So a big part of our strategy is figuring out who your levers are in your business.
Welcome to the podcast. Nathan Newberry here, your host. I have Michelle Berman-Mikel on the show. Super pumped for you guys to hear her story. She is like a social media prospecting queen. She speaks everywhere. She has a little guy. She is married to an amazing guy. You're going to hear her story, really cool background story that we're going to hear from being a swimming athlete. And then before we dive in, though, I want to give you guys a gift. Down in the show notes, so many people need to build an online presence, but they just lack the understanding of knowing how to do it right. And so I want to give a full training of how to do ads, how to run a branding platform, how to do sales, build a media team. So grab that down below. That's my gift to you. Michelle, super glad that you're here connected with us on the show. Diving into it, what is high performance? What does that look like? What is that definition? How do you define that in your life?
Yeah, high performance is a really interesting word because I feel like it can get dissected in so many different ways, and people can look at it in what is success? It's, are you a high performer because you have these traits, or is it because you've reached a certain level of success? I think there's a lot of different ways that people answer that question or could define that. But to me, high performance is really simple. It's every day, do I go to bed at night knowing that I did the one thing that was on my list that I probably didn't want to do, did I get it done? Right. And also with that, once that's done, then the whole rest of my day is gravy after that. Right. And typically the thing at the top of our list that's on, I have it next to me, and I don't know if people are going to be able to watch this, but I have these analog cards. This is what I use. I don't use a planner anymore. And the first thing at the top of my card is always the one thing that I'm like, I don't want to do it, but I know I have to. And that's the one thing that typically will move my needle the most. So to me, high performance is really about saying, hey, I'm probably not necessarily in the best mental state today, or I'm having a hard day, but I'm going to do it anyway. And we can certainly dissect that. But I think overall, high performance is a combination of willingness to do something that you really don't want to do and knowing that you have to in order to move your needle. But also second, it is, I think, a lot of the traits that a person has, it's innate, right? So you have to either have it or you don't. Grit is probably one of my favorite words. I get explained in that capacity many times, or by a lot of people when they're saying, how would you define or like describe Michelle? They use that word a lot. And to me, it's like, it's a compliment, right? Because that means that a high performer is someone who says, hey, I have all of these things going on in my life, and I'm choosing to overcome them and keep moving forward because I have a higher purpose or a bigger calling, if you will. And there's some stories there, but I had a really traumatic miscarriage in November, and I had several clients who said, Michelle, how are you still coaching? Like, how are you showing up for all your people? And I was like, well, funny is I can't do the dishes right now, but I can show up for my coaching calls and for my clients, because to me, it was like, that wasn't an option not to do that. Right. These people were paying me to support them and to help them. And that wasn't an option. I didn't get a plan B, like, hey, I'll just take 2 months off. Like, that's not a thing when you're running a company like we are. And I know, you know what that feels like, Nathan. So it's, to me, there's so much to unpack there, but I think that's a really good way of saying it.
Yeah. And we could dive in more to these tactics in a minute here, but tell the audience a little bit of what you do, how you serve people. You got a book coming out here soon. You're a well-known speaker. You have an online influence, talking about prospecting online. Tell us a little bit more about, though, how you serve people.
Yeah, I would love to. And thanks again for the opportunity just to be able to share my voice here. I think that, the world that we live in on social is a really saturated place. But for me, what does Michelle do? My job is to teach you how to understand that social media coaching is important. It's necessary, but it's not the future, right? Social media prospecting and how you look at the platform is the future of sales. And so I know, most of your audience are people who are in the sales world. And so in order to be in sales and to be where you want to be, right? Quite literally using social as an opportunity to create opportunity for yourself, right? No pun intended there. But, for years, businesses and professionals have been told that build a following on social media. That's the key to success. And the logic really did seem sound and does, if you think about it from a surface level of more followers means more reach, which should in theory translate into more opportunity. But the reality is that audience size does not equal revenue. And most professionals do not need more likes. They need more clients. So the obsession that we all have, and that even myself am guilty of having, is if we're obsessed with vanity metrics, it's really honestly led salespeople, real estate agents, mortgage professionals, whoever, business owners alike, down this path of content creation. But the problem is that they're creating content so much that they're on this hamster wheel of I'm just creating, and they don't have a conversion strategy for how to turn what they're creating into revenue. So most of the calls that I get when people reach out, they're like, Michelle, I've been putting all this time and all this effort and time, money literally into Instagram or into social, and my content's pretty, but I haven't done a single loan or I haven't gotten a single deal out of it. And they wonder why. And so I will ask them two very specific questions. And based off of how they answer those questions, I know why they're not. And it's because they don't have a conversion strategy in place. So they're sort of, long story short, there's this illusion of influence based off of how many followers do I have, but it doesn't equal revenue. It just doesn't. And so why the gap? Why do we have this gap between what people think that they need to do and what they should be doing? It's because most social strategies for really all intents and purposes are content heavy. They're focused on content visibility rather than when you get on social, what does this piece of content do for helping you create ROI? What's the end game through this piece of content? So if you've ever heard the saying sell through versus just post to create or post to create a transaction, you have to sell through something. So really, most social strategies, as I said, are content visibility focused rather than conversion. So in their minds, they buy this program to create better content with the intention of, if I get on social media, if I make this video and post it, then in turn, that will mean that money ends up in my bank account. Well, that's not true, right? Audiences themselves don't pay bills. The clients that come through the content do. So that's where social media prospecting comes in. And that's really, again, my superpower or secret sauce, if you will. So there's three things I always talk about, which I'm sure we'll get into when it comes to how do you prospect and what does that actually look like. But really, to simplify it, social media coaching helps you look good, right? The idea there is that our visibility on our platform is pretty. We have a growing platform, but the key difference, if I can super simplify it for you, is social media coaching helps you look good, helps you grow an audience. Social media prospecting helps you turn the audience you already have into a revenue platform or a revenue stream for you. So one is about influence, one is about income. And I think my favorite way of describing it with words that people understand really well is vanity versus influence, right?
Mm-hmm.
One is about vanity. One is about patting ourselves on the back and being like, look how many followers I have, right? Which feels good on the outside. But to me, I would rather have, 20,000 followers that I've worked 15 years to grow, but know that what's in my bank account is super reflective of the work that I put in. Whereas, I have people that will reach out and be like, well, I only have 300 followers. There's no way I can make money off of Instagram. And I'm like, no, you honestly can easily make more money than someone that has 20,000 followers if you do it right. Right. And if you're actually focused on what does the outcome look like when I produce this content. So I could keep going, but that's the fast answer.
Well, let's dive into more of these tactics in a minute here. I want the audience to hear your backstory a little bit about like how you got into this and what kind of sparked this grit and this grind that you've had, because you've been an athlete for a long time. Bring us back to the beginning stages of, what's your wiring? Why are you obsessed? Why do you have this grind about you? I think people want to know about that.
Yeah. I love that you use the word obsessed, because I always say I'm obsessed with the relentless pursuit of perfection, which means I'll never get there. Right. And I say that all the time. It's probably a fun catchphrase that I always like to use, but being relentlessly in pursuit of perfection means that we will never get there, which means that every day we wake up and there's something else for us to get better at doing or something else for us to learn. But to go all the way back to the origin story, this is a hard story to talk about for me, but it's really important that I share it. It's a big part of who I am and how I've gotten to where I am today in 2025. But I grew up as a competitive swimmer. I swam, officially started on an actual team at the age of 4, swam all the way through high school. My junior year of high school, I got recruited to go swim Division 1. So I actually went on 6 recruiting trips, which is, I think technically the maximum you can go on. I don't know if that's changed since I went to college, but I went on all 6 of these recruiting trips. Ended up landing at Rutgers. So for all my East Coast people, I ended up swimming for them all 4 years. And the real part of the story that needs to be spotlighted is at the age of 4, right? I have parents that have been married for 40 years, love my mom and dad very, very much, but I always had this phrase that was stuck in my brain by my father, as a swimmer, especially, but even just as his daughter. But he would always say to me, and it honestly, looking to today, I'm really glad that he did say what he said. But in the moment, I was kind of annoyed, right, about it. But what the saying was is at the end of every race, at the end of every, test, or at school, if I had an event or something happening, but mostly specifically to swimming, he would say, honey, was that the best that you could do today? Even if I had just totally crushed my best time, even if I just won my heat, or even if I got dead last in the heat and had a terrible race, the question was still the same. And I was always super irritated by the question, like growing up, because I'm like, Dad, didn't you just see I just won? Like, you should be excited for me. Or, Dad, I just did terrible. Why are you asking me that? And in the moment, again, it was frustrating. But the question is, was that the best that you could do today? And I always had to answer that, one way or the other. Can I honestly go to bed at night and say that was the best that I had in me today? And if I showed up as my highest and best self, then how can I be mad? How can I be upset? But if there's any little inkling in me that didn't, or knows that I didn't give it 100%, then that's on me. Yeah. Right. So transfer that, into 20 plus years of competitively swimming. And I actually swam the mile. So for anyone familiar with swimming, it's the longest event on the program, male or female. And it actually only became an Olympic event for women, the Olympics before Paris. So very recently. But with that being said, the mile is 66 laps in a short course pool. It's 30 laps in an Olympic pool that you see on TV. And wow. I actually found out many years after I had officially retired from swimming that I had this superpower when it came to swimming. I call it my primary skill, but I reverse engineered the mile. So I actually swam it backwards, meaning I would count down from 100. So in a short course college pool, it's 16 100s, and I would count backwards, 16, 15, 14, 13, until I got to 9. When I got to 9, I would find a second gear. And typically my dad would say, even afterwards, like my dad was the guy in the stands with clipboard, like clocking my splits. And he would always say, like, if I didn't have that gear when I was down to 9 100s, then it wasn't going to be a good race for me because something was off. Right. And he was right. Every time, like I would find a way to find a second gear at that point. And so for me, transfer into today, fast forward, my program, how I built the course, how I teach what I teach, it's 100% a reverse engineer of, okay, my goal was to complete the mile in under 17 minutes in college. So what did I have to do every single day to get there? Okay, well, now I got there. So now how do I undo it and turn it into something that I can teach to somebody else? And so, fast forward again to today, 2025, and what I do for a living professionally. It's a reflection of the exact steps that I took to even be sitting at the table with people like you, or are on stages that I get the honor of being on, right? That's just a straight up gritty grind of creating relationships, building something from one step to the next, to the next, to the next, until you get to the goal that you have. And,
you're on a lot of stages with mortgage brokers and in real estate. How did you get into those industries specifically?
Mortgage and real estate was a full-on accident. I'll say that. I think most people can attest to getting into mortgage on, like, as a lender or someone in real estate. Very rarely are you like, I went to high school and went to college knowing I was going to be a real estate agent or a mortgage broker. Like, people don't say that. Usually they end up in it on accident. And for me, I actually graduated with a journalism and media degree with a minor that ended up turning into a major because I had too many credits. Long story, but a double major basically in psychology with a minor in English. And all of that to say that I wanted to write a book. I knew that in my heart I wanted to do that. I always, and I still remember this to this day, I said to my dad at the time when I graduated in 2012, I have something to say, Dad. I just am not sure what it is, but someday I'm going to write a book. And my journalism degree, my initial goal was to actually go into broadcast journalism. My dad was an announcer for all of my swimming, most of my swimming career, was very much like an MC type of voice. His nickname and his Twitter handle, his Instagram handle, all that stuff is Dad the Voice. So it's kind of like a funny thing in our family. So for me, it was like this innate thing of like, this just feels like the right path for me. I ended up going into broadcast journalism very briefly, only to realize that I was going to be broke for a long time before I would make a break. If you hear Erin Andrews' origin story, she'll tell you the same thing. She was dirt broke for many, many years until she became who she is today. But I actually ended up getting a job as opposed to writing for a small public relations firm. Frankly, hated it. Working for someone was not something I enjoyed a whole lot. I have a very high DI personality. So anybody that knows the DISC profile or has done the Strength Finder Index, this is also kind of a running joke with my coach, but he's like, Michelle, you're virtually unemployable based off your Strength Finder Index. And I'm like, oh, well, that makes sense. So basically I went to work for this PR firm and hated it. So I walked into my boss's office and said, I'm out. There's got to be a better way to take care of people. Like, you're not a nice boss to us as your employees. You also don't take care of your clients. So I quit, ended up going to the gym that afternoon. And one of the gentlemen at the gym was like, Michelle, what's going on? Like, you seem out of it. His wife and I were good friends. He's like, I have an idea. Come to my house. I'll show you this whole Instagram thing. And worst case scenario, you hate it. Best case scenario, you love it, but at least you get a free dinner. I was like, sure. Okay, whatever. I was 22, almost 23 at the time. He introduced me to the world of buying and selling Instagram accounts and flipping them like you would buy and sell real estate. And I made more money in my first year of buying and selling Instagram accounts than I had made ever, like by a lot. Ended up selling my first 2 Instagram accounts in 2016 for almost 90 grand. And then went full throttle into helping actually create opportunity for clients. So I was doing it for people, and instead of doing it for people, I turned it into how do I teach other people to do it for themselves. But that's what that process of transitioning from I'm doing it for other people into now I'm teaching them. Where the real estate piece specifically came in is one of the clients I had acquired locally was a real estate company, like a local brokerage. And one of the ladies that worked there, she was like, come in and do a training. We'll pay you $500. There'll be lunch. And it's like one of those lunch and learn type, whatever they call them. Right.
Yeah.
And I was like, sure, whatever, free lunch and $500. Cool. And this was back in 2014. So this was the year that I officially incorporated Berman Media, because after that training, I was like, I'm on to something, I think. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I officially incorporated myself, and then that's when I really fell in love with real estate. And then on top of that, the mortgage industry was an accidental side effect, right? Because when you're in a real estate office, there's a primary lender or a designated lender in the office. So I ended up meeting the designated lender in that brokerage that I was working for or working with in Phoenix. He was like, can we just pay you to actually help us generate more realtors for our office? And I was like, well, yeah, sure. So I literally became the pawn to help him get other new realtors into his office. And then about a year after that, I severed my relationship with them and broke out on my own, because at the time I had to be exclusive to his company. And I was like, exclusivity isn't going to work if this is going to take off. So that was in 2016. Yeah, 2016. And then the rest is history.
Well, let me ask you some specific tactics here, because I remember reading the book with Alex Ramosi, $100 million leads, right? And he talks about how lead generation works. One is the organic approach that you're getting a lot of people realizing, hey, this is more of a middle of a funnel type of thing than actually how to generate leads. The other one is paid ads and the cold and warm outreach, right? You specifically attack the aspect of prospecting. Talk about that aspect of what most of the time people come to with those challenges and how you solve that.
Yeah, I'm a warm prospecting fan. That's my number one goal for every client. There's 3 ways we have to go about prospecting. First and foremost, your content has to be the foundation of how you prospect, because if your content isn't a reflection of who you are as a real human and you try to prospect somebody, the first thing I'm going to do psychologically, here's my psychology nerd coming out, but the first thing I'm going to do is go straight to your profile and dissect who is this person, right? That I just received an inbound message from. That's what our brains do. So if your content doesn't speak to the message you just sent me or isn't aligned with what you just said to me, I'm out, right? And also, if I can tell that you didn't put any ounce of personal touch into that, I'm also out. So there's a lot that goes into that, right? And most people, when they produce content, they're focused on virality. So they're focused on what's the best possible hook for my video so that I get the most views. Okay, well, I don't want my hook to have anything to do with mortgage or real estate. If I'm a lender or a real estate agent or anybody in sales, right? To me, the first thing out of my mouth shouldn't be about what I'm about to try to sell you. Because if it is, what's the point, right? So to me, prospecting through social is relationship based. It's relationship driven. So your content needs to be a function of who are you as a real human being outside of work. So the first message that you'll ever send to someone has to tie back into content that you're creating. Example, right? Let's say I'm trying to reach out to a lender to get them to hire me, right? I see that they're an ideal client for me. And I see that they're a runner. For example, I'm actually running a half marathon here in a couple days. I'm racing my first one, like racing officially. The first couple, you're like, let me just figure this whole half marathon thing out. Now I'm like racing one. But I saw a lender very recently that is a target strategic alliance that I really want because he's connected to several other people that I know. So it was a very much so like a strategic play for me. But here's where this comes into the conversation. He posted about running. He actually posted his totals at the end of 2024 for how many miles he had run over the course of the year. So my initial message to him, I name dropped somebody else that he had recently spoken to, and actually took a picture with at the half marathon that he had just run. And then I took a screenshot of my Garmin app. And I wear a Garmin, for those of you guys who can see me, right? I wear a Garmin every day. And so I took a screenshot of it in my app and I sent it to him and I said, you got me beat by about 5,000 miles over the course of the year. And so we started this conversation around running, and then I name dropped. So this is where my leverage comes in. And so a huge part of what I teach is leverage. But I name dropped the gentleman that he posted a picture with at the half marathon in Dallas. And I said, he's actually one of my clients. He has been for about 2.5 years. I would love to get on a call with you and just see if there's some synergy between me and you. I don't know what could come of it, but at the very worst, it would be a great conversation to get to know you. He immediately said, yes, we were on Zoom later the following week, right? And he runs a company of 50 plus loan officers that can certainly benefit from what I do. But that's prospecting through connection-based content, right? Relationship-based content. So if you're only posting in-house marketing content, if you're only creating content through Canva with no personality whatsoever, and also if you're unwilling to show up as a human outside of work, meaning, hey, I run, hey, I go to CrossFit, hey, I love coffee, hey, I love basket weaving. I don't know what it is, right? I have a client who loves pottery and goes and like makes, I don't even know what it's called, but like going to the place where you actually make the pots and like do all of it, right? She's super into it, and she has a huge audience of people that are also into it that she can then in turn create clients out of. But it's relationship based marketing. So that's why I allude to the fact of connection based content has to be there first. Because if you're trying to prospect and I click on your profile and everything is in-house marketing or copy paste Canva, Canva templates, I'm out.
Right. It needs to be personal and connection of who you are and what you're about. Like you and I post pictures of our kids. Some people don't like doing that. I understand, privacy aspect of it, but that breaks down the personality of who you are. And like you're a mom, you're a runner, like those things I think are personal about who you are, and people resonate with that so much more than just aspect of the Canva shot of a motivational quote or something.
Yep.
What is, what are some things that you do in terms of like trying to generate the list that then you target those people?
So
Right.
great. That's a great question. So I have what I call levers, and this is a huge takeaway for all of you guys who are listening to this that are like note takers. Please get a notebook out because this is like where it's at. But I have a process where I work through building levers. Some people, if you are an athlete, you might have heard this, but it's a very, very famous quote, or like I guess it's a quote, but it's long. But it's the thing called "Who sits in your front row." Literally, if you guys just type it in Google, it says type in "Who sits in your front row." It's this really, really long, good, chunky paragraph, but it is badass. It's on all of like my notebooks. It's been a huge part of how I've gotten to where I've gotten to, is that particular statement. It's probably 4 or 5 sentences. It's decently long, but the concept is who sits in your front row. And as it relates to what I teach them how to create levers in their business. So levers would mean, if I were to name drop, or what it means is, if I name drop this person, does it hold weight enough to create credibility with the person I'm trying to now build a relationship with? So when you think of a lever, think of it as this person is someone I have a really good relationship with. They know me well. They know what I do. They know who I am, right? They know how I execute what I execute, so they can speak to it. And then I have to sell through them, right? So who can I create a relationship with based off of a relationship that I already have? That's called leverage. Leverage is my favorite word in the English dictionary for a reason, but leverage by definition is this big fancy thing. But in my world, it's simple. It is, who do you know that you have a really good relationship with, that you can build another relationship with someone that you don't know through them, right? So a big part of our strategy is figuring out who your levers are in your business. And whether that is, someone in mortgage, real estate, whether that's you that owns a coffee shop, it doesn't matter what you do, right? You have these abilities to create levers for yourself in your, wherever you live, even if you're a national brand like you and I are, right? So what I'll do tactically, let's just say I take Brian, right? We have a mutual friend, Brian Covey. He was recently on your show. Brian is certainly someone who would be considered a lever for me. He's made many introductions over the years of knowing him. But Brian, if I want to sell through Brian, right, I have to consume his content. So very simply, if he posts about somebody on his Instagram or on his LinkedIn, and I don't know that person, the very first thing I'm doing is I'm clicking on their profile and seeing what other people is that person also connected to that I don't know. And who can I then name drop? Obviously he or she may have come through Brian, but is there other people that I can also name drop in addition to Brian when I send a message? And then I have to consume their content and find a connection point. So I got to find a connection point. I got to find like a person. I got to find a connection point on a relationship side of things, meaning like on a personal, hey, what do you like doing outside of work side? And then I craft that into a message with a really, really authentic call to action, right? One of my favorite things to say, because it's just very true to who I am, is we may not be a good fit, but I would love to jump on a call and see if there's some synergy between the two of us. I think there's a lot that we can do with each other. And I'm honestly shocked that I don't know you. Does Friday work? Do you have some time in the morning? I mean, that's as simple as it can be. But the idea, if you boil this all down to one very specific thought, it's this. It's, if I send that message, if I do it right, the person on the receiving side will almost feel guilty not responding to me. And that's really where the power lies, is if we can create enough of a desire in the other person to say, I don't know who this person is, but like, damn, that was a different message than the types of messages I normally get. Now my interest is piqued, or I'm inquisitive of like, what is this all about? That person, first thing, what are they going to do? They're going to click on my profile and make sure I am who I say I am. Right. So that's where the content piece really comes into play. So this is all kind of, weaving together, but I hope that answers your question.
Well, what about like, I know there's an aspect of volume, right? That you need in sales. Like what's a good number that you have the people that you coach saying, if you do this amount each day, you're going to win?
Yep. I love that you asked that, because I actually have a 365-day challenge for this exact thing. But what I say, whether this is on a webinar, whether this is speaking on a stage, whether this is in a one-to-one sales call, what I'm having with someone, it's this one thing. If you send one message every single day to someone that you do not know through a lever for 365 days, your business will not look the way that it looks right now. That is a guarantee. That is a fact. That is not a maybe. That's a 1000%. If you send a message to someone that you do not know every single day for 365 days through a lever with a very strategic alliance designed in it, right? You're intentionally choosing this person based off of a lever. 365 days, at the end of that, your business won't be in the same spot. I am living, breathing proof of that exact fact.
Now, you serve a lot of businesses, not just the mortgage and real estate. A lot of people that have commission-based roles or other business owners, they can benefit from you learning, or they've learning this from you, of like how you really kind of dive this into. So do you give them scripts and playbooks? Like, what is it? And describe a little bit more about how you help people even more with some of this tactically.
Yeah, so tactically, I do everything in 3 phases. I have a phase 1, which is content based. So we have to fix your content problem. Most people come to me with a content problem. Most calls that I have on a daily basis, first thing out of their mouth is, Michelle, I have no idea what I should be posting or what I shouldn't be posting. I don't know if it's good or if it's not good. I don't know. Right. So phase 1 of our process is we have to fix your content problem, but we have to do it in a way that's very different than that sort of social media calendar thing that's out there all over the world and the interwebs. Right? You shouldn't download a free social media content calendar. That's not going to solve your problem. What you need is a customized content pillar situation, or what's a better way of saying that? You need a customized content calendar based off of 4 pillars that are very unique to you. And everything I do is based off of 4 pillars. I can nerd out about that later on. But those 4 pillars need to serve multiple purposes. One, we have to have a credibility pillar, which is adding value, serving, educating. Like, most people will tell me that the biggest issue that they're having is that they have this pull to want to educate, but then when they go educate and they actually produce the content around educating, it's super boring, or it's not meant to actually be readable, right? I mean, how many times have you seen Canva templates where there's like way too much words,
Right.
or it'll be like the 5 steps to the home buying process, and it's like so small, I'm not reading that, right? And on top of it, second, that it's very generic, where if I can Google that, why would I hire you? If Google can solve my problem, why do I need to pay you to solve my problem? I don't, right?
Totally.
So think about it that way. But phase 1 is content. We have to solve your content problem. We also work through ChatGPT. So I have a very unique process for what I call value series, where we're combining passions and pain points into one, creating a 5-part video series based off of the passions that you have outside of work. I have a client right now that's doing a soccer series. Brian Covey is a good example of one. We're actually in the middle of writing a series for him, where he's out on the soccer field, and we're creating an analogy between soccer and a pain point that he has for the people he's trying to recruit to Revolution Mortgage, right? And also he's on the leadership side too. So he does a lot of motivational stuff, a lot of speaking, all of that. But that entire 5-part series, he's not recording behind his desk. He doesn't have a phone stuck in his face, sitting at his desk, like all professional, right? He's doing it out on the soccer field in his element, in a way that makes him feel really excited about the content, and also makes the people watching it feel connected to him, right? So there's a big difference in how we produce content in my world. So that's kind of a very small snippet. But once we're done with phase 1, we then transition into phase 2, which is prospecting. So in this phase, there's 3 big things. Who are you talking to? What do you actually say to them? And then how do you track it? So who should you be talking to? That's where we build out the tracker. It's a 5-day tracker. Each of the 5 days, you have a very specific category of who you should be trying to talk to based off of your goal, right? Me and you, Nathan, our goals are different than John Doe. Like, everybody's different,
Sure.
right? So we have to strategically build that out based off of what is your goal and who do you want to be breaking bread with, literally, right? To create business. Strategic alliance is a great word, because who are these people that you can strategically align yourself with on certain days of the week that then create that opportunity? So that's step 1. We got to build the tracker. Step 2 is, what do you actually say? And this is a huge problem, because I get them every single day. I'm sure you get them every single day, but we get these very, very salesy messages where we can 1000% tell that that person did not write that message for us. And usually they copy and pasted it to as many people as they could get it out to, right? So now they're focused on this, like, hey, I sent 100 messages today. Look at me. And I'm like, great. How many people did you get responses from? Oh, well, like 2, and both of them are pretty bad. Both of them, you could tell they were either like, no, thank you, or yeah, okay. And then the conversation would end, right there.
Right.
Right. So we got to spend a lot of time in the art of conversation. You guys have probably heard the book or read the book, What to Say. That's a great book to help with, but it's not the end all be all as far as actually sending the message. So in the message structure portion, I'm teaching them how to actually send that message, how to name drop properly, how to have a really strong call to action that's not salesy in any way. And then I put them through role play where they actually have to do it. They have to submit them to me so I can see it and make sure that they're not terrible. And then we just progress past that. And then, of course, the tracking piece is a huge part of it. How many messages have you sent? How many replies have you gotten? And being able to diagnose your own analytics to be able to say, hey, I need to make an adjustment or I need to pivot or something's wrong, obviously, if the numbers aren't aligning. I could keep going, but hopefully that's...
Yeah. There's so much that we could dive into it. And for sake of time, I mean, we have to wrap it up here. How can people, though, connect with you further to learn about you and how you help them?
Yeah, the easiest way is Instagram. I'm also getting a lot more active on LinkedIn. It's been a little bit more of a focus lately for me. But Instagram is really my favorite place. It's certainly where I spend most of my time. But you can send me a message. Berman Media Social is my Instagram handle. I'm sure that'll be in the show notes. I do have a free workbook that I give, and it comes with a webinar. So it comes with about a 40-minute webinar that you can watch that then gives you the workbook to go with it as you're watching it. And that's really important. It's a big part of how we build phase one, which is the content phase, which then in turn creates the foundation of how we prospect. So send me a message on Instagram. That's the easiest way. Tell me that you heard me here with Nathan. And I love getting to see those messages because then I get to tell the podcast host, hey, I got a message. Somebody heard us. It's always fun.
Yeah. Well, go do that. We'll link everything down in the show notes. Again, Michelle, thank you so much for being on the podcast. Before you go, don't forget to check out that training down below that I talked about at the very beginning about how to grow your audience. I think that's going to be super helpful for people to really dive into as just a free gift. We will thank you for listening to the podcast, and we will see you on the next episode.